Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and because it's a Tuesday, it's a podcast Tuesday, and podcast Tuesday means it's a great day to be doing a podcast with you. It's going to be a great show because we have a world famous big brain smart head on with us again, and we also have the world's greatest listeners who have made us a global top 10% podcast. As usual, feel free to reach out to us at bufnagle.com. Share the love. Share the 5-star review, subscribe, like, tell a friend to listen. You get a free episode. And somewhere in the show notes, you can buy me a coffee. I did this a couple weeks ago. I was so excited to be on the show with our guests that I just rushed that through the, what do they call it, housekeeping. The house has not been kept, but that's okay because in the house is none other than America's favorite rocket scientist, Bob Luzinski. Bob, we haven't talked in a while. How are you?
Rafe, I'm great. I've had a very busy time recently, and as always, it's great to be back here in the Buff virtual studio, and even more, as always, it's always great to talk to you.
Well, thank you. That's it, and the feeling is mutual there. That is great. So we're going to talk. I don't have any formal notes here because we kind of said we should talk about some stuff, and things got ahead of us, and now here it is, recording time, and we're a minute and a half into recording time, and you have notes.
Of course I have notes. As we just discussed, I never go into one of these things without extensive notes, whether it's a recording session for the Buff or if I'm doing a live presentation formerly for work, but also in the course of my hobby, aggressively pursuing my hobby that involves possible, doing presentations for people. I'm always have extensive preparation for those.
Well, and I knew
it may be last minute preparation.
Hey,
as it was today.
People would say that to me, like we'd have a test on Thursday in college, and here it'd be like Sunday afternoon, and they'd be like, "Are you ready for the test Wednesday?" And I was like, "It's not Wednesday yet."
It's not Wednesday yet.
What kind of question is that? So okay, okay. Because these things matter to me, I would like to talk about maybe just a couple things just to get things set up. Okay. I want to know how your autumn has been with regard to things like train shows and visiting family, and how are your flowers? Okay. Those are 3 big important things. And then I want to talk about rockets because we haven't done that in a while, and there's things going on, although it's not getting quite the press that it used to. So how are the flowers?
The flowers, I don't really have that much in the way of fall flowers. I keep thinking every year I should probably do something to have more all season long, except for winter, flowers and stuff. But I really am mostly a spring bulb kind of guy right now. And then the rest of the summer, by June, by the time you get to June, once the irises are done, I got nothing for the rest of the year.
That's when you leave and go to vacations and things.
Well, it would. I mean, I look at other people's houses and it's like, wow, that's really pretty. I should get some of those, but then I don't. So,
well, your voice is in my ears whenever I'm in my front yard and I look at the bulbs I planted 2 years ago, maybe something like that, about this time.
Which you have not sent me any pictures of yet.
Oh, we sent pictures of that. We sent pictures of. Didn't we send a picture of you with one of the grandkids next to the flowers?
I don't think. Maybe I don't think so. I think you planted them after that happened.
Well, we have some pictures. I will send some pictures, but when I look at them, I think to myself, but something tells me. Bob has told me that I need to, at this point, dig them up, separate them, and put them back in the ground. Something like that. Is that accurate?
3 to 5 years.
Oh, I got plenty of time.
Yes, you need to let them get established. Then they start spreading, and then you go, oh yeah, I can split these off. I'm well overdue for that.
It seems to me that is that feels like a really, it will produce its fruit in the spring as we would expect.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like a kind of thing that you don't ever want to do. Right? They're in the ground. They're where they're supposed to be. They're just a little closer than they should be. Right? I mean,
they kind of get to the point where they've overgrown the vision you had for them when you planted them, and you need to thin them out. Maybe even give some to neighbors and friends. Just like, here, I have these extra bulbs I don't need anymore. Please plant them in the ground. Things like that. So,
all right. Well, that's coming up then. That is it for a future episode. And have we had trains this fall? You did some this summer.
I have done a fair amount of train stuff in the summer and this fall. And yes, there was a National Model Railroad Association National Convention in the suburban Detroit area this year. And I attended that, had a great time, met some interesting people, reconnected with folks I haven't seen in years, including one fellow who I'm going to say almost 20 years ago, when I went to a convention in Denver, in Colorado, he had opened his house for us to have operating sessions a couple days, and I attended both of those. And I saw him, and hadn't seen him in almost 20 years, saw him walking, looking at the layout that I was involved in, and remembered his name. Well, after I saw it on his shirt.
Sure.
And then I remembered why he looked familiar, and I was like, hey, and, just talked to him. So it was fun stuff like that. So that was great fun. As we've talked before, it's always going to a convention on your interest or hobby is always a wonderful thing.
That builds the community, right? And that's
yes.
that's what you can do hobbies on your own, but it's never as much fun. So okay, so I have two questions about that sort of thing. One is like how many, like how big was this national convention?
It's about 1,000 attendees.
Just 1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And is there like a local Detroit? Are there like local chapters and things like that too? And
the National Model Railroad Association has divisions and regions all around the country and actually around the world, quite honestly.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. And then I had a second question that fell out of my head when I was.
Well, maybe it'll come back while I'm talking about the other thing, the other train things I did in the fall, and also kind of a fun thing, family thing that happened.
Yes.
So as I think we've talked about before, I participate in the model railroad hobby in a few different ways. One of them is I build modules, which are small chunks of model railroad that you can put in the car and go somewhere and set up with other people who also have built to the same modular standard as you, and then you can build a bigger railroad.
Yep.
And I've done that a number of times over the past 4 years since I started doing that part of the hobby. And I did. We had a few of those this fall.
A few of them
in late September. Yes, early October. There were two different meets. One was in Pennsylvania, one was in Ohio, and those were great fun. Got to set up, got to run trains around the railroad, talk to people in the public who are coming up to the train show, not unlike what we do at the Lego convention and the Great Ball Contraption, talking to the public, and it's a lot of fun. So did those. Also had the experience that I know you've had a few times already, and that is my son purchased a house.
Oh my, yes.
And moved into that house. And then I have had just a few weeks ago, I got the opportunity to actually travel there so every 2 weeks I took like a different trip. And this one was both a combined model railroad trip and visit to my son's new house, where I had the opportunity, as I'm sure you've had, to be dad and, help them out with
all those little things that they never like how would they know them?
Yes.
I was talking to Harry about that a while back, and I said I used to get, I don't know, either miffed or righteous indignation at people not knowing certain things that I think they should know. And I've come, as I've aged, to realize that was a really, really, really bad approach to interacting with other people, because if they don't know, they don't know. I know you could argue that they should know, but the simple fact of the matter is they don't know. And you have two choices. You can either help them come to knowledge, or you can belittle them. And the second thing is a really, really bad thing to do.
It violates the golden rule, which is to treat other people how you want to be treated.
And if you would like them to come to you for more questions so that they can get smarter, then the best thing to do is just to say, "Oh, all right, well, you never learned that. Let me tell you how. Let me show you how the water heater.
Yes.
Here's how you start the pilot light on the water heater. Here's how a thermocouple works. Here's these little things, like there's no hot water. What do? Well, okay, there's this little thing in the bottom. You take that off, you look inside, you take a little sandpaper. It's probably corroded. And there's a little trick, and they will remember that trick forever until they teach their kids that trick. Right.
Yes.
And it is full of all sorts of things. And it's been really fun to watch Harry become very adept at a lot of different things. YouTube has been a real benefit to those kinds of things.
And that's a really interesting difference between when you and I learned how to do these things and what's available now. I know, talking to my son about he has two bathrooms, and he needed to redo the mounting on one bathroom and then replace the toilet in the other bathroom, and the mounting on the toilet. And he went to YouTube. He found YouTube videos. He learned how to do it by watching YouTube videos, and then he did it. He actually had to remove and replace the flange that holds the toilet in place, something I've never done, probably should do on one of my toilets, but it wouldn't have even occurred to me to go watch a YouTube video to learn how to do it.
Well, I remember,
whereas that's just the natural reaction of the younger folks these days.
And it's such a great thing when you can find somebody you can trust on there. I've seen people, some advice that I'm not sure I trust, but if you watch enough of them, you pick them up. I remember being a young homeowner and my wife wanting to paint the bathroom or put wallpaper in the bathroom or something like that.
Yeah.
And looking at the obstacle of the toilet tank in the way and removing that. And that's one of those that if you screw it up, it can leak a little bit, and you can keep the water off, I guess, until you get it right. Or you can, now, yes, I've done this. Or you can over tighten those bolts and crack the tank, right?
Yep. You can do that.
But you learn that, and so I had to go get a new one. And it's fortunately my wife said, "Well, I guess we'll just go get a new one." And I was like, "Oh, that's excellent," because she could have said, "How can you be so stupid to break the toilet?"
She took the high road.
Yes, it was very good. It was wonderful, and so that's the thing. And eventually you learn, and then eventually you have the best projects though are the ones where you go, "Oh, I can fix that, and I don't have to go get any more tools."
No, that's not the no. The best projects are the projects where you need to get tools. The best projects are the ones where you don't have a tool and you need to go get it. Those are the best projects. I do have a torque wrench that I've used once, and I would like to use it more often, but I don't do those kinds of things. You have it. That
Bob, it'll go to you in my will.
How much better
in my will?
You have it. I have a torque wrench. I've used it exactly once.
Yes.
To tighten a lawnmower blade on the lawnmower. Should I be using it like every year to take the blade off and have it sharpened? Yeah, probably. But
okay, well that reminds me. I do have to take
that tells you how much I care about mowing the lawn.
Well, I have to take my blades off and sharpen them, but I also have there's a cable that my mower does a thing that it runs constantly, and then when I want to mow, I pull the handle. It pulls a cable which pushes a pulley into a belt that engages the blades, and that cable has gotten a little bit stretched. So
as they do,
as cables do. And the last time I mowed, it took me a while to figure out this is what was happening. It became very obvious once I figured it. It was one of those things when you're like, oh God, that was so easy. Why'd that take you an hour to figure that out? So I have to tighten this cable, and it's not obvious to me how to do it because there's a ball on one end or there's a ball on the other end, and I can't just like slide the little grab. I don't. That'll be a project for this weekend, I think.
Yes, so. There you go. So anyways, it's been great fun, both answering his questions about, hey, like what brand of toilet should I get? Or, whatever, the internet says this brand is good, things like that. Or how do I do this? And the best is getting the messages that say, I did this and it's done and it's great. And because then you can say, yes, isn't that the best feeling?
That is a great feeling. In fact, I talked about that on a not long ago episode about this idea that when you finally get it fixed and you feel joy. That's what joy is. The capital J, that's a joy. Unfortunately for me, it's very fleeting.
Well, and the funny thing is the reason it's joy is because with almost every project, you go through a point where you think, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to be able to fix this. I'm not going to be able to figure out how to do it. You have all those doubts, and then it starts coming together and you finish it and it works. And you're like, yay, I did it.
Yeah. And it's a great feeling. It is joy. I got to ask you, I've had this conversation with Harry quite a bit lately as he's looking to get more tools for his little wood shop. And, you can buy the less expensive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, you will say, shoot, I need to upgrade because it doesn't do the thing, right?
Yes.
And so I'm just wondering, because I used to work at the wood shop and guys would come in and they would say things like, okay, I want to get started. I want to do this. I want to be able to do this, whatever it is, build a table, kitchen table, or I want to build a bookcase for my wife or whatever it is. And, there are $400 options and there are $1,400 options and there are $4,000 options. And the $4,000 option is really great if you really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the $400 option is great because because you can get it done if you really know what you're doing. But if you buy the 400, it's going to be a matter of time before you go to the 1,400. And it was difficult for me to know how much do you want to be into this realm, into this hobby, into this thing that you're doing, because our general attitude was, I would tell people, and it's taken a long time to get there, is I would like you to only cry once, right? That's the adage. It's like, because if you spend $400, that's a lot of money.
You're going to cry when you realize you need to get
again at $1,400. You're going to cry because you've already spent $400, and now you got right. So what do you tell him?
Well, it's a little easier with him because he seems to already have this mentality. For me, this has been one that I've had to learn myself the hard way. And I have come around to just in the past 10 years. I now, when I buy a tool, I try to buy the best one I can buy, right? I'm no longer going to, because I lived with for decades crummy tools.
Yep.
And I'm just not doing that anymore. And yes, there's that balancing act of, buy the best tool you can afford, right? I mean, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it.
Right,
if you got to put food on the table or, you have other priorities, the kids need clothes, et cetera, et cetera. But buy the best one you can afford. Because, you will never regret buying a good tool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because you can look at it and you say, well, this is a 7/16 inch wrench. Why? This one's $1.99 and this one's $7.49. And this one's $22. Yeah. What could possibly be the difference? Until that day when you go and you realize that the 7/16 inch wrench that you bought for $1.99 isn't 7/16 of an inch wide. Or because I had that happen, and I've had it happen where I bought the socket wrench and I tightened up. I think I was tightening the lawnmower blade, and I broke the socket. The socket broke. It just snapped.
Yep.
And then
Buy
and then
tools.
my hand had the scrape on the backside because and those are the things. Or I had a jigsaw that quite literally fell apart in operation. The blade fell off, and the whole thing it just kind of crumbled in my hand, and I was like, "What?" And so now I'm out the jigsaw, but the project still has to get done. So now I got to get another jigsaw, and now I'm crying a second time because I didn't spend the money on the good one. And it's I don't know. You should only cry once and buy the best thing you can afford, or either that or just have a very faithful father who happens to have those tools and would love to come drive halfway across the Midwest to help you out.
Well, right. And that was the fun thing was he had when we were talking about when because I had this busy schedule with model train activities, when I could come visit him. And I told him, well, I'll just come on a Monday. And he says, well, but I'm going to be at work. And I said, yeah, and I'm going to be working on your house.
Right.
So I'll be working, at your house while you're at work working. Okay.
And as long as you bring pizza home, we're all good.
Right. Yeah. or we go get pizza,
Right, that's even better. Yeah.
And it worked great. I mean, I was there for 3 days, and then I left from there to go to another model railroad event, which was what we call a rail prototype modeler convention, which is so there's model railroading, and then there's railroad modeling, and prototype modeling is more focused on, rather than the train going around the Christmas tree or even, a train set on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. It's trying to model as faithfully as possible as your skills permit, model a real railroad at a real location at a real time, whether currently or in the past. And
can you do the future?
That really wouldn't count as prototype modeling because the future doesn't exist yet.
Well, it depends on which direction you're going.
Anyways, this is, I had never been to one of these. I've been curious about them and figured they would probably be something that would interest me. So I've looked at going, but this worked out because it was basically between here and my son's house, in the suburban Chicago. So it was on the way back, and I spent 3 days there after spending 3 days at my son's house. So I was gone for a week, and it was great fun. There were people attending that I knew, and we got together, had dinners together, had fun, attended clinics, looked at some really good models built by really talented modelers. So it was a lot of fun.
So is that no? That's not as big of a convention as the 1,000 people. I mean,
it's a smaller thing. But being smaller, what's interesting is there were just as many people that I knew there, because I tend to circulate in the circles in the hobby that are focused on real prototype modeling.
So is that so anything that has railroad stuff in it is eligible? Is I mean, you can do whatever you want, of course, but to get the praise and adulation of your peers, it has to be railroad related. Railroad related?
Railroad, not just railroad related. Boy, that's tough. But it's related to a real railroad, past or present, and in a real place. And there's just some really talented modelers, and it's amazing what they can do.
So it's all about landscape and buildings and you build a scene, right?
And the rolling stock and locomotives.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
As much as any of that. So that was great fun as well. And since I returned home from that, I had renewed enthusiasm. I've been down in my basement removing one particular obstacle to my progress to building a railroad in the basement that I've planned for quite some time.
Was that a basement wall?
It involved the wall and other parts of the house that needed fixing, and they are fixed now and
great.
awaiting priming and painting. And I'm very excited that I will be starting that this fall.
Oh, that's great. That's wow. Okay, so
that's me. What I've been up to for the past several months since maybe the last time we talked.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, we are headed. I think I mentioned this to a journey to some places in France coming up over the next couple weeks. Yes, and so we will. So this episode I think will drop while we are there, depending on how the schedule works out here.
Okay.
So that will keep us busy. So I've been busy planning that, which is, I'm better at reading my French, although my pronunciations are still atrociously terrible. But I can get my way through a train schedule, which is what really
matters. Is important.
That's the thing that matters.
And in countries that have transit, yes.
But what I'm not very good at is reading a rocket schedule. And now see the segue there.
Yeah, so very nice.
So, okay, wow, we have finite time.
We're more than halfway through.
But we have some. So what's okay? So it's been.
This is why I have extensive notes, because I know that I'm going to have to go plow through the extensive notes.
Well, or you can do as much as you want. We'll come back and
we'll come back. There's a big one that probably we won't get to.
Okay, so right now we are in late October.
That we could do a whole episode on. So, anyways, continue.
Right. So we're late October, and I have not heard a lot of rocket news of late. I mean, I think the time
there is rocket news.
I'm sure there is, and we were people were catching rockets, and there was some people were stuck on the space station and they got down, and there was that kind of thing.
They weren't actually stuck, but
yes,
whatever.
You saw my air quotes.
But the audience didn't.
Yeah, but
our listeners did not.
That was some news because that's news. But there's other stuff been going on behind the scenes.
That was probably the last time we talked was early in the year about this. Yeah. So there's a few things that are happening. One. There's been some developments on NASA's Artemis program, which is programmed to return to the moon. The Artemis 2 flight has a launch date now. So they announced the launch date for Artemis 2. Noteworthy on Artemis 2 is that it is the first crewed mission, as in crew, CREW, of the Artemis program. So Artemis 1 flew a few years ago at the end of the year in December, and it was uncrewed, no people on board. In fact, there wasn't even a environmental control system, so you couldn't have flown people on board. And so Artemis 2 is going to like Artemis 1, is going to go out around the moon and come back. It is not going to actually go into orbit around the moon. So it will be similar, but not exactly the same as the Apollo 8 mission back in December of 1968.
We all remember that, Bob.
Well, I do. So
I hear you. Yep.
Anyways.
Well, I was 3, so I was in bed at the time.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was pretty amazing. Anyways, for 24 hours, 20 hours, right on Christmas Eve, we flew for the first time into orbit around the moon. But going to the present, Artemis 2, the planned launch date as it stands right now is the 5th of February, 2026, next year. So that's coming up. There's still quite a few things that NASA has to do. The most important of which will be the wet dress rehearsal, which will occur several days before the planned launch date.
So a wet dress rehearsal
is basically
with fuel,
everything except lighting up the engines. It will include integrated testing of all the improvements to the launch pad that were done after the damage caused by the first launch. It will hopefully go well, because they're, for Artemis 1, they had several additional tests prior to the wet dress rehearsal that ran into problems with leaks.
Okay.
Things like nitrogen and whatever, helium. There were also hydrogen leaks, but those were fixed on the pad. They also had a few hurricanes they had to dodge, which shouldn't be a problem, and hopefully isn't a problem in February.
Hurricanes won't be a problem. Is freeziness a problem in February?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Okay. Because we've learned our lesson with that one.
We have learned our lessons about that from a launch in January of 1986, as we've talked on the previous episode.
And repeating with another one.
Well, but that wasn't because of the cold. So that was a different problem. Anyways,
yes.
So NASA's working towards that, despite the environment of having a federal government shutdown. And about the only thing you can say, though, that is affecting that is the NASA communication department is part of the shutdown. And so we're not getting a lot of public information released, despite the press asking questions. They just aren't giving the answers.
So they have a scheduled date of the 5th of February, 2026, which would be 3 months from now, give or take. Is there November, December, January? Yeah, give or take 100 days. There's a launch window? Is there a launch window?
There are launch windows, and this is one of the pieces of information. Actually, as I was doing my prep, my cramming for the exam.
This is a really hard oral exam, Bob.
It is. It always is, because you always ask questions that I don't have answers for. Anyways, this one I have an answer for.
Okay.
But the answer is that I don't have an answer for you, and that is part of what I just spoke about, which is the question has been asked to the National Communication Department, not by me, but by one of the people I follow on this topic. And the answer is, yeah, we don't have that information to release yet.
Well, let me ask about just the concept of a launch window. Okay, so the moon's going around the Earth, and so is that now, like, a launch window to Mars is a lot broader and a lot more like, once that is closed, it's really closed for a long time as the planets get farther apart and other side of the sun and all that. But with the moon and the Earth, is it that dramatic with them open and closed? Or
the moon goes around the Earth, roughly once a month.
Yep.
And so you have opportunities basically every lunar day.
Okay.
And which a lunar day matches its orbit around the Earth, give or take. There's a tiny little bit of difference there, but that has to do with how long how far the Earth goes around the sun during the time that the moon goes around the Earth.
Where you are in the
which
orbit.
We're not going to get into in depth.
Well,
but
not
so
yet.
the lunar day and the time between new moons is slightly different.
Yep. Okay.
And we're going to leave it at that. So yes, that there is a launch window based on, tilt of the moon's orbit relative to the launch azimuth out of the launch site at Kennedy Space Center, and all kinds of other complicated things. I'm really glossing over it.
No,
there were launch windows during the Apollo project too. It also has to do with the capability of the launch vehicle, how much push it can give. This particular mission, Artemis 2, is because this is the first time they are flying the environmental control system, the part of the spacecraft that keeps the air breathable. And it's one of the things that keeps the astronauts alive. Yes. Among other systems, like, for example, the pressure hull of the spacecraft itself. and the heat shield, which is a whole nother topic. So the since this is the first time this is flown with people on board, and it's the first time it's flown on the Orion spacecraft in space with people on board the first time.
Okay, so I'm hearing this term "first time" a lot, and so let me cut to what I'm listening here carefully to see if I'm missing something. It seems to me like has this thing. If I was doing had we but whirled enough in time, right? I would test this thing like in space with just like sensors and stuff in it to make sure it worked before I put people in it.
In an ideal world, which last time I checked, we don't live in.
We're not there. That's right.
In an ideal world, you would have a uncrewed test flight with a functional environmental control system with all kinds of sensors.
Yeah.
You would then have a crewed test flight in Earth orbit, where if things weren't going well, you can come back right away.
Yeah.
Which both of those things happened in the Apollo program.
Both of those test
flights happened on the Apollo program. Apollo 7 was a full duration, 14-day flight in Earth orbit, the longest they expected to go on a lunar mission, but in Earth orbit, where you could come down anytime you wanted.
Okay.
If things weren't going well.
So,
however, Artemis 2 isn't going to do that. Artemis 2 is going to go around the moon. So what they've done is they've made a plan that involves not leaving Earth directly for the moon, but leaving Earth for a 24-hour orbit that will bring them back in a day.
Oh, so they're going to go and then come back and then go?
So they will go into an Earth orbit, but they won't complete that first Earth orbit. That's a low Earth orbit, because before they finish that orbit, they will fire the engines again and go into this 24-hour orbit that will return them 24 hours later, where they can then, and during that 24 hours, they will characterize the functioning of the environmental control system and lots of other systems. And management will then make a decision whether or not to press on with planned firing the engines to go out around the moon and back.
Okay.
Which commits them to basically a week-long flight that you aren't going to get back. You aren't going to be able to shorten up. So that's a decision. It's mitigating risk by doing it, but it's not mitigating all the risks. It is a interesting choice. It's not a choice. It's not a decision I would want to make.
Well, there's pressure on them to do all sorts of things, right? There's money pressures and political pressures and job pressures and human pressures, and so it's a okay.
So
and they're not taking it lightly.
No, they're not, and that's Artemis 2.
Okay.
We've talked before earlier in the year about SpaceX's Starship, which is tangentially, it's related to the Artemis program in the sense that the Starship is also going to be used as the lunar lander for the first lunar landing mission, which is currently nominally planned as Artemis 3. After, assuming Artemis 2 goes well, then Artemis 3 would take a lunar landing version of Starship and land on the moon.
So the Artemis 3 would take a Starship vehicle on top of what rocket?
The Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle.
And they call that Artemis 3.
Well, that would go separately from the Orion spacecraft launched on the SLS rocket, NASA's moon rocket, and what they're using, and it's what they're using for Artemis 2. So those two would meet in lunar orbit, and then astronauts would ride down to the lunar surface in the lunar lander version of the Starship vehicle, and then come back up and then get back in their Orion spacecraft and then come home. That is the nominal plan for Artemis 3, assuming everything goes well with Artemis 2, and assuming everything goes well with all the things that have to be done with the lunar landing version of Starship and the normal version of Starship in the coming couple years.
So that's looking at what kind of time frame?
Well, nominally, the plan for Artemis 3 is currently the middle of 2027, but very few people
kind of a little smile on your face there when you're
very
saying
few people who know anything about this expect it to happen at that time, which is a whole nother story, which we aren't going to have time to get into, but we really should talk about in a separate episode in the near future.
Okay, so what do you want to call that? Because we will make a commitment.
We will call that the
let's go to the moon.
How to go to the moon sooner than we're already looking like we're going to get to go. And there's a whole bunch there that could literally fill in a whole episode as I look at my notes.
No, it is difficult to keep all those pieces in like,
yes, and we should probably have one episode just on that. And I'm willing to do that in the near future. Well, but yes. I do want to follow up just a little bit more with Starship. We had SpaceX finished out the year with 2 successful launches of Starship in late August and mid-October, after having 3 failures, dramatic failures earlier in the year in January, March, and May, and then a rather spectacular test stand failure, which took out their test stand in June. You can look up YouTube videos about that. It was quite a spectacular explosion at night. And since there's a lot of interest in the Starship program, there were live cameras trained on it 24/7, and it was
all
captured.
The data.
You just need to search for those and you can find those. So they finished out the year with 2 successful flights, and now they are transitioning to that was version 2 of Starship and version 1 of the Super Heavy booster. They're now transitioning the launch pad. They're building up the second launch pad, and version 3 of Starship and version 2 of the Super Heavy booster, which is expected to fly sometime in the first quarter of 2026.
Of 26. All right. Well, we'll keep our eyes open for that. I keep hearing all these Mars things. I keep hearing Mars and hearing Mars, and if you go to the SpaceX to their website, they have plenty of stuff on there that, they talk about, what did they say? How many flights per day to get all the stuff to the Mars? It's going to take just massive quantities of launches. And let me ask this.
I'm not prepared to talk about Mars right now.
No, let me just ask this question.
Sending humans to Mars.
No, sending that much can we run out of the stuff that we use to make the rockets out of? I mean, they're talking.
Apparently, the Earth is a fairly big place relative to how much consumables are going to be used to do that.
Okay, all right, because there's a lot of. I see these pictures. I see.
The consumables, liquid oxygen and methane are the 2 big hitters. And there would be a lot of launches to do that.
Well, that's the fuel. I'm talking about the rockets themselves, the pieces, the
stainless
containers.
steel.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and I have no idea how much stuff that is relative to the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, you see comments like that from folks, and you see responses that say it isn't even close.
Isn't okay? Great. Wonderful.
So
that's good to hear.
So, anyways, SpaceX is working during this interim time to rebuild, to finish building their second pad in Texas, to rebuild their first pad in Texas, and they've also started working on a pad at the Kennedy Space Center in Launch Complex 39 that will support Starship launches for the lunar landing. So,
all right,
yeah, so that's where that stands.
So you might not be hearing much news, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
There is a lot going on behind the scenes, and there is a lot going on behind the scenes in the lunar landing program, the Artemis program related to the lunar lander, which we will cover. We will plan another episode soon.
Yes, well, we should probably set a launch date for that. But since our communications director is out right now, we're going to have to wait.
Well, maybe when he's back from his trip to France,
something like that. Yes, we'll have to get them enough of these, being slackers and running around Europe and seeing the wonderful things there. Bob, as always, this is remarkably. I look and sometimes I see the clock as we are recording, and I don't really process it. And I look, and it's been 45 minutes since we kicked this off. And I thank you. I don't know what else to say. I wish there were better words. I wish there were fuller, more complete words in my arsenal.
You know what? You can do a lot worse than thank you.
Well, see, even that is it is always a pleasure of mine, and I'm humbled that you. That you join us here. So it is great to see you again, and we'll talk soon.
That sounds great to me. I've had a great time as always, and I look forward to our next visit.
All right, there you go. The rest of you, you know the shtick. Seek the good, live virtuously, and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life.
It's going to be a great day.